and stop trying to do all that secret squirrel, cool pimp daddy shit. They a powerhouse together. This is what they don't want, because we knew this before they came, and we used it, and they discovered it, what we was using. So they started murdering off the women that was married to the chiefs and marrying and murdering the chief till there ain't nobody up seasoned enough to deal with the problem. So now we got to learn how to communicate with women all over again, because the way that they teaching us how to communicate is totally destructive to our entire community. It's all about communication that we have our problems. If we understand who we is as a people, we get to overcome the obstacle of what they told us versus what we know to be true. We know everything, especially the sisters, because y'all got direct access to Akashic records, right? That's why I say when you learn how to talk to your uterus, you don't need nobody to tell you nothing at that point. That's big mama training. Because some women take years to learn how to effectively use that method. But once she do, she have direct source influence in her life, and she's going to be able to move stuff that couldn't formerly be moved with common means in the immediate environment. This is why when they start activating laws of nature, like if you watch a mama bear defending her cubs, she'll fight off a male bear 3 times her size, and her ferocity, nature turns her ferocity up higher than his, so that she'll stand a fighting chance to protect her babies. That's the law of nature. And the women of the earth got a right at the close of every age to restore the matriarchy and to prepare for the next 7 generations to come. And it's a baton race, and it's carried on from there until entropy sets in and the society decays again, as it is now. Totally screwed up. That's a sign.
How?
Stuff like that is how our ancestors talk to us.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I would just not have that book.
Yeah, but look, your ancestors knew that that book had some information that you needed, so it put it in the place that you're going to come at a price you can easily afford for you to access the information without the traditional block methods like overpricing. Egypt was set up by Tahuti.
Okay.
Tahuti is the one who set up the Temple of Isis in Arizona before Egypt was ever thought about. And the original Temple of Isis in Arizona, the original Sphinx, is all weathered and beaten down, but the artifacts are still there. The same temple priests that he took to Egypt spread out all over the world. And they was putting pieces to the earth history all over the world. It was temple priests that set up what we call today the Hindu civilization. It was temple priests that set up the ancient Ainu civilization in Japan. It was temple priests that organized the Mongolians and gave them civilization. These temple priests all came from what we call today Central America, from Teotihuacan, from Titicaca, and from I forgot the name of the other one. But where you see the Great Pyramids of the Americas in Central America, we have mounds and pyramids all over the Americas. There's the Great Black Pyramid in Alaska, right? There's a couple more of them that look like mountains in the Rockies, but you can't tell that they're not pyramids because they're covered with trees, right? So this is the history before Egypt. Egypt was set up because they was doing some stuff in the Middle East. It's the Middle East now, but it was once called Goshen, which means the extreme provinces of Egypt, or Kemet. It got the name Egypt from the Greeks calling the people Egyptos, which means burnt faces. And they called the people of Ethiopia Ethiops, which means dark faces or burnt black faces, right? So the Ethiops was a mispronunciation of the term for Ethiopia, which is the nine ether science, right? So we're talking about what's known as black root science. There's pieces to the black root science in all of the cultures. And if you don't know all of the cultures, you can't never get all of the pieces. And therefore, you can't never activate the divine nine, right? So they call it the great Ennead. But first, you have to get the great Ogdad active. These is all Egyptian mysteries that most people have no clue what they mean. They just think they sound good because they can say some hieroglyphic stuff in English. But that's the source of Kemet and its knowledge and the temple priests. When they told us they burned down the library in Alexandria, those were all copies. The library was moved by tunnel to the Vatican long before the fire ever started, right? Because those documents needed to be available for the future. And we're going to be able to send researchers in there to go get our real history out. Over here, a lot of us don't know this, but the tribal histories is kept in caves in national parks. That's why a lot of us can't find our true history because they put it away out of our sight.
Mm-hmm.
We have history just like they got history. It just ain't written in English. And some of it has been translated over time. Mm-hmm. If they earthborn and they fertile and they can make a baby and carry a baby, they can talk to source through their uterus. It's a direct line. It don't matter what part of the earth she's from, long as she's earthborn, she can ground out and talk to her uterus, talk to source. Any earthborn woman that can produce a child has it. Some of them had hysterectomies, can still do it using the spiritual, what they call phantom limb. Well, some women didn't know how to tap it, those specifically the ones from Europe. This is one of the reasons they came here. If you go back to the witch hunts, you will see that the big mamas was teaching them what's known as yoni magic, and they was killing all of the pale-faced women that was being taught and the big mama that was teaching them, right? Because they didn't want them to have that same access to source data, but they can still communicate using the uterus if they know the science. Remember, first in time is first in line. Y'all have access to stuff from the melanin that other nations can't access.
Right.
Melanin is what we call autosentient. It's conscious by itself. Right. And the skin melanin allows the melanin to have a broader reception range. You got a larger surface area to draw in data. And there is a difference in because it's like dimensional travel.
It's like levels, almost. It's levels to this, you know?
Yeah. It ain't that we strayed away, it's that we went into a war and the enemy used our culture to attack us by reversing it on us. And then they gave us a foreign culture as if it was actually our culture. It was an actual conjure. It was a 200-year amnesia that was created. I call it the George Washington Challenge. Because it was done in the Masonic lodges in Philadelphia, but they had to move the capital to DC. The conjure was the secondary constitution that was written in the blood of Crispus Attucks to lock us under that constitutional paradigm. and the side effect is they killed off our elders and they mistaught us to give us amnesia.
What they call it, the kilt conjure.
That might be it, because it was done by 30 straight smoke. That might be exactly it, because it was performed by 32 degree Scottish Rite Freemasons. So that might be the Masonic name for it.
Correct.
Wind talking is something that you learn over time. I can't tell you like do this, and you wind talking. It don't work like that. You have to be. It's part of it is in your blood. It's telepathic. The closest thing you can do to learn is control remote viewing. So you get a CVR manual, control remote viewing manual, that the guys who invented or who originally researched it wrote, that tell you how to activate your remote viewing. That's one of the skills that come with wind talking or cold talking, is learning to remote view through time and space. Do you know what a catch? Do you know what a catch term is?
Yes.
Okay. So the word, as we see today, MOOR, was part of the Conjure War. And it classified those who was MUUR, Indigenous, and those who was MAURI, foreign, under the same banner. This is how you end up with righteous Moors like Sabir Bey. And then you end up with dirty Moors. The righteous Moors know that we from over here and we gonna reclaim our land. The dirty Moors want to convince us that we foreigners so that they can claim our land in our stead, and that they Yahweh will have found them a homeland. They've waged this war all over the planet. When they settled in Europe, they got kicked out for blood rights, for adrenochrome harvesting, and cannibalism. When they came over here, they were vampires. And because we wear wolves, wolf pelts, our military, one of the totem clans, the Black Wolf Clan, wore black wolf pelts. And so they called us werewolves for those who wear the wolf. And they said that we was lichens because we look like kin. So these is the terms you see in your vampire horror story movie. Right. The zombie is the old voodoo Zumbe, which is the one who is physically present, but his God self is unawakened. Right. But it became sensationalized in Hollywood as a Walking Dead person. It's not what it means. It means there's a person with the God gene that's not active. He's the Zumbe. And you got to go through a certain ritual to wake you up. Which is going into why they wanted us to stay away from the Vadum, because it empowers us to wake the God self up. And they don't want us doing that. It's too late. We won't.
Right.
Yeah. But this is how we end up with good Moors or righteous Moors and dirty Moors. If you Google King Charles V and go to images, you're looking for an image with King Charles and a whole bunch of Indian chiefs. Right? And then go to George Washington Masonic Memorial Museum and type in and put fezzes behind it. It's going to pull up a fez display. Those were the Scottish Rite Freemasons and Shriners that came over as masters of the occult sciences. And the chiefs you see with Charles V. Charles V was a melanated chief, but they paint him pale in the pictures. But he was one of the ones that was of the righteous families that was settled in Europe that was ousting the ones that was eating the babies.
Wow.
So he bet the wager on the chiefs. This is why that mural was created. This is all done in the lodges. It's all blueprints to an exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see the George Washington statement about the 200 years,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't know which side of the water we from if they take the fezzes from the Moors and the sandals from the chiefs. Right? So that group of chiefs are now here reclaiming everything in what we call their descendants. So it comes down, they say beef is inherited, and they telling you that for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So the totem chiefs come back at the end to fix all of the problems and to restore the tribal mothers back to the land. And we work from different fields based on our ability. Everybody not supposed to do the same thing. Because if everybody do the same thing, we couldn't get nothing done.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody not always supposed to agree. Because if everybody always agreed, we wouldn't get nothing done.
Right.
It's through the disagreement and the contention that the truth surfaces above the BS.
Okay.
Right? So Sabir Bey know he tribally from this side of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And he know it's dirty Moors. All of the Moors know. If you say, what do do y'all call certain Moors dirty Moors? They tell you, yeah.
Yep.
They do it themselves because they have to identify all of the infiltrators in their ranks.
Mm.
This is how we know if we infiltrated or not. Because
Okay.
we expose in our ranks who is who. And then when somebody is acting different than who they profess to be, they not us.
Mm-hmm.
They invader and they're an infiltrator. Right? But you have to know the MO, the modus operandi of the ones who's doing the infiltrating, what they here for, who sent them, right? So once you understand that, then you say, well, what strategies is common for these people? What do they use to win in their wars? And this is what they will be using against us. Their greatest tool is called deception.
Right.
False narratives and misleading dead ends. So when Noble Drew Ali said get a good Moorish education, he didn't mean just stop with the pamphlets. The pamphlets was just some codes. It's all data codes, right? It's certain stuff he say in the pamphlets that lead you to a broader spectrum of research if you know what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Noble Drew Ali was native over here. But he had to find out what was going on the land.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what's going on, there's no way to fight for freedom if you don't know what's really going on versus what it looked like on the surface.
Right.
I mean, you have to dig in places that other people are not going to look.
Right.
He found himself after years of traveling the sea trying to find stuff out, settling in New Jersey. This is where he encountered the Moorish Zionist temple.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when he found out the conjure that they was maintaining was the 200 years George Washington conjure, he said the only way out of this, the chiefs need to know what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to put the Masonic secrets in the public domain. And this is why you see a lot of sensationalism in our art, because that's how we express an idea. A picture is worth 1,000 words, but a word is just a word.
Right.
Right? So we can tell more through art and artistic expression in one sentence than we could in a whole book.
Yep.
Here at the beginning, but I told Sister Freedom, I say, I'm a Pan-Africanist too.
Really?
But from my understanding of Garvey's teaching, we were supposed to form a world's confraternity.
Right.
And from that confraternity, they gonna tell us where we from. And in that confraternity is where we come together to fight the common enemy and the purveyors of this doctrine called white supremacy. I used to get told a lot, ain't nobody right no white supremacy. Yes, they did. It's Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike.
Okay.
This is the operating manual of white supremacy.
Okay.
The control manual that tell them what they enforcing is called the Protocols of Zion. I didn't write it. It's on paper. And if you analyze it with the reality you live in, you'll see it all playing out in front of you. They told us what they was doing. Then they did it. And then they challenged us at the end to come in and undo what they did. And that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so we live in what's called a free will universe.
Okay.
And when two free will people encounter each other, the only way one can override the other one's will is by overt force or by deception. So they use the law of the jungle first.
Yes.
That's the warfare. But they still have to tell us what they're doing, but they can deny it.
Right.
So the so-called leak is fulfilling that fact that they have to tell us what they're doing to us before they doing it and while they doing it, because at any time we become aware of what they doing, we can stop it. We don't have to consent any longer. We can disagree. We can separate. But as long as we going along to get along, they're using our God power to their advantage. You hear me speak on raising the matriarchy a lot.
Oh,
but
exactly.
The reason why I don't speak on the patriarchs, because I don't have to tell a man when he see a woman in her feminine self, he gonna already boss up. He know that he had to be his best self if he wants that one. Right? He can the girl of your dreams, right? The girl of your dreams. When you see her in your physical form, because she didn't fulfill her divinity as the earth angel. You don't want to be at your lowest when you encounter that, because you don't feel like you would have a chance to capture the girl of your dreams. So you're going to have to be a man. The kind of man that every woman wants is the man that every woman wants.
Woo! So let me interject. Let me ask you this.
I don't have to focus on the brothers. When these women start being feminine again, and they start loving on each other again, we gonna say, hey man, y'all, I ain't going in there with my pants sagging down, my ass hanging out, because them sisters right there, they ain't regular. But one of the things that we got to understand about the matriarchy is the best man for the job is the man the matriarch pick every time. The best man for the job. She not going to pick the second best, because why would she do that? There's no woman out there, you ask, hey, I'm the third best person for this position. You think I could get the job? She was like, well, who's 2 and 1?
Right, that part.
She don't want the third best, the second best. She wants the best. That's just the rule of the matriarchy. And if you are a leader as a man, right, when you go on, you have to have a destination, first of all. My destination is raise the matriarchy, restore the great mother. That's where I'm going. Now,
Okay.
my cause of action is to restore heaven on earth by putting the great mother back on her seat. If I can be successful in alerting the people to the return of the great mother, in the restoration of the great mother back to her proper position, and the women start to heal, I'm gonna be fine after that. I don't need no more. But the rest of the purpose of my life after that is work the fields with my mother, with my hands, with my sons.
She the
Right.
first. So why
But
wouldn't you want to let that?
my mission is to raise the matriarchy. I know that the men gonna see it because they didn't want to listen to me when I tried to tell them about it before I started teaching the sisters. This is the part you didn't know about. I was teaching the men. I only been teaching the sisters 5 years. From the day I started getting knowledge, I've been teaching the brothers. Right? So now it's time for me to do what Elijah told me. 85% of the work is with the women.
And the women bring them in. Let's
And
be
Okay.
then,
clear.
First
and
teacher.
then Noble Drew Ali say,
The
we here
woman,
to
the
uplift.
feminine brings that.
Yeah. Noble Drew Ali say, we here to uplift fallen humanity. And who's fallen humanity? The great mother ain't on her throne. That's when humanity fell.
You're right. You're right.
So if we uplift fallen humanity, we all go back to being humane to one another. We stop allowing people to train our children and hypnotize them into believing that they're an alternate gender from what their mama produced.
Wow.
Right? This is a concerted effort of warfare used against us to influence our children. It's part of something called a gay agenda.
Yes, yes sir. Yes.
We first have to regain control of our community, put the great mother back on her throne, and it's automatic. We automatically start reorganizing the communities.
Wow.
You know
Right.
what?
I used to listen to my big mama tell my mama stuff about me in my future. Shirley, now you see this one here? He sees things. You need to pay attention when he tell you something. I used to give people the lottery number till they started exploiting the gift, making
Wow.
promises to a little kid and not keeping them. If I hit the number, I'm gonna take you shopping. They knocked the aluminum siding out the number and
don't
forget if they never take me shopping.
Wow.
So the gift turned off. Section from exploitation.
Oh.
Okay. So first of all, we was prisoners of war. We weren't slaves. The slave narrative was told to conceal the fact that we was prisoners of war at home. Second, the Trail of Tears was a swap out of a different group of people that they brought with them as servants to replace the tribes. Those cities that's predominantly us in the South is that way on purpose, because a lot of them was villages before they were cities. And we had settlements down there as they ousted us on the Trail of Tears and continued on with the imposters to settle on the reservations. And they used the paper genocide to reclassify us in a legal system. But we really, our real legal determination is belligerent tribes, because we was the tribes that refused to sign treaties with them. Some of my ancestors was part of the tribes that did, but part of my ancestry comes from what they call the outlaw tribes. The outlaw tribes is the ones like the Mississippians who would never agree to any of their terms because they would have knew they was lying, right? So they didn't never trust them to sign anything, and they wanted us to surrender land, and that's to us like selling your mama. They believe in selling their mama and their children. We don't. That's the difference in how you know them from us. They just, whitewashing history so that we would think that the pale face is the enemy, while these imposters is pretending to be us. Like we're not gonna know our people. And that's why they give us an alternate perspective of history so that we could celebrate the oppressor as if he's saved us from ourselves. He didn't save us from nothing. We was doing just fine till they came over here. We dealt with ourselves how we dealt with ourselves. Then they upset our peace. And I'm here to establish justice. That's the instinct of a matriarch. She know that her son need to see a man to be a man. Anybody born with the gender can be male, but only certain types of men is the influence that a matriarch will want around her son. So sometimes the father might have problems with drugs or alcohol or whatever, hookers, whatever his vice is, and it don't work. The wise women know to expose their son to strong, positive, driven men. And so she does that unconsciously and might see it years later, as in your case. But you following something that the matriarchs teach the women anyway. If your relationship doesn't work and you can't, for whatever reason, he might have a mental disorder. It might hurt you and the children. So you can't have them around. And the matriarchy tell the women, if you have sons, make sure that they're exposed to the type of men that you want your son to become.
Mm-hmm.
And the exposure allows him to see what his masculine side's supposed to look like. Right? But the women that's caught in the feminist agenda, they don't want their son to exhibit masculine traits. So that the patriarchs that they represent as drag queens can be the dominant male figure for the women to look at. And they all got skeletons in their closet bigger than dinosaurs. And so long as our men don't just do what the man supposed to do, it's like in my case, my mama sent me to do this work. She don't send me to do nothing this complex just to be sending me. Somebody finna get this work. My mama said we ain't come from no Africa. I don't need nobody else to tell me nothing after that. We ain't from Africa. My daddy told me about his Native American grandmama hair down to her ankles. I don't need nobody else to tell me nothing. I know what's going on. I read the culture and I read the history. And the culture don't agree with what the history is telling us.
Okay.
So I'm telling the people what the culture say. So the Carolinas is very instrumental in this entire 500-year struggle. It was the Gullah Geechee Big Mama, who was the highest matriarch on the land, called all of the tribes to war against the Spanish in Florida in the Gullah Wars.
Right.
When the Afro chiefs arrived, this is when they started calling us Seminoles. And they said that the Afro chiefs was runaway slaves. That's the Seminole narrative.
Right.
The Gullah narrative is Big Mama said all hands on deck. We got invaders at the door. Some of us went to give support against the French in Louisiana, and the rest of us, all hands was on deck, moving into Florida. That's why Florida, the finish line, right? But the call came from the Carolinas. And this is why um, Big Mama, Empress Redbird, had to be coming from Carolinas, because the same place that she emerged is the same place that we got the call. And this is why they were saying that we was runaway slaves. We wasn't running away from plantations. We was running away from family settlements that they had encampments around to keep us on. And when they took Big Mama out, they took her name off Big Mama House and called it the Big House. And Slick Willie, she was married to, dressed up like the butler and put them fancy white folk in them fancy clothes and told them that they was the owner. All the time that house nigga was running the show. This what happened to us. This is why we were so adamantly against the house nigga. But see, he used to, behind the scenes, treat Miss Ann them the same way they treated us in the field. And when Miss Ann them get tired of it, they realized that he didn't actually gave them too much power, and they ousted him from the house. He ran out to the field for help. And we none the wiser. To after the fact. Then we start realizing we can't stand them house niggas. King George was solicited by the French to sponsor Georgia as a state to stop us from supporting the Gullahs, and they was put a military force in the state of Georgia to try to stop us from giving that back up. This is when we went into the Conjure Wars. This is the cause. What's special about the Gullah Geechee people, when we talk about the royal families from Africa marrying into the royal families over here before Columbus came, they a prime example of that. They a prime example of that. They knew what tribes that the people that married into the people over here was from. And then their history was changed to the slave narrative. But they was here long before that. Settled on them islands, just like you talking about. Their culture itself is seductive to our people, because the way that they fuse their indigenous ancestry and their African ancestry is almost hypnotic to experience for us. The only, we was POWs, they call it the slave trade, to try to convince us that we came from somewhere else.
Yeah,
we was prisoners of war at home.
Yes. Okay.
About, go ahead, I was talking about the Trail of Tears and how they pushed us out on the, that's they were saying we was Africans, but we wasn't no damn Africans. We was already here. That's just to make us not reclaim the land at the close of the age. Trick no good. And if you pay attention to what you're saying,
go ahead.
Look, what you're describing is the call back home that Mother Nature giving their kids. When we have to move for a purpose like war, right? We always going to return back to the part of the land we originate from. We have to. It's in our nature. Everybody makes a pilgrimage back home. They don't know why they going. You hear people now, girl, I'm going to Texas. I don't know why I'm going down there, but I got to go to this game. But it got to be the game in Texas. They having the car to go to Texas. They just need an excuse. Because they seeing something spiritually that they can't explain in the 3D. Nature calling them to Texas. Now they looking for a game in Texas so they can have an excuse to go. Because they don't know how to tell their friends that they just had a spiritual experience, and they realize that they need to go to Texas, even if it's just to spend the weekend. Dude, it's in their culture, it's in their blood. They know the African kin folks they got on the other side of the water. That's why that's the difference between a lot of the rest of us, is that we don't trace back to Africa because we was already here, And if we did, we would be able to Gullah Geechee trace back to Africa.
Right.
They can tell you when they got tribal history of interacting with Africans long before Columbus. They were doing trade and marrying in the royal families with Africans long before Columbus sailed.
Okay. Okay.
They had already had a communication and presence in communication with both sides of the water.
All right.
They
So
want
you
us
saying
to believe that
okay,
only when the
Africa.
European come did we discover Africans.
All right. All
It
right.
all up. Listen, they traded. Africans traded with our tribes all up and down the eastern seaboard, including the islands.
What year was this?
This was before Columbus.
All
For
right. Where can
thousands
I
of
find
years,
this?
it's nothing new. It's
Okay,
not
where
new to
can I
us
find
over
this?
here to have interaction with Africans. What's new
Yeah,
to
but I'm
us
just
is
saying.
for to tell us that we are Africans when
But the thing is,
most
though,
of us was
no,
already here.
respect. Yes.
Right?
So
Yeah, they
okay.
would be referring to the because they had seafaring tribes long before Columbus sailed. This is how the Moorish navigators knew where to come to look for a settlement.
Right.
Because it was in the log that all of the navigators of the world had at the time. This was just an off-limits land that they wasn't supposed to touch. That's
All
why
of
they
these
call it
things,
God's country.
all of
Hey,
these
can I?
things,
The
right?
Vikings did come over here before Columbus.
So you're talking about the Norse, the Celtic, and the people like
Yeah,
that.
they today we call them Hell's Angels because they was given the charter to roam as nomads.
Now, did they hit North America? Where
Yeah,
did they land? What part?
so it's
Is
not a
that not
myth.
a myth story?
There's
Is that, hold up,
artifacts.
is that
There's
not a myth story?
artifacts that accompany that.
What's the artifacts? Where did
They
they hit
have
at?
they
Did they
have
hit what,
stone. They have
Canada?
stones that they wrote on when they came that was here before the settlers by hundreds of years.
When?
Discovery Channel did a whole show on it. That's a good place to start.
Discovery?
Discovery Channel. The video's on YouTube,
And they
but
say
it was
those are
produced
all
by
myths.
Discovery Channel, Vikings in America.